Well, thank you so much, Chairman Miller, for your extraordinary leadership. To Representative McEwen, thank you so much for your hard work. And I feel very, very lucky to have leadership on both sides of the aisle who is passionate, who is absolutely committed to helping us improve. And I look forward to working with all of you to help take education in our country to an entirely different level. And Chairman Miller, just—
I think if we can get you to pull the microphone, I see some heads nodding in the back of the room a little bit.
A little closer. And Chairman Miller, just on a personal level, this transition to Washington, you've been just an absolute champion, someone I've learned a tremendous amount from. And I want to thank you for your leadership, your thoughtfulness, and your heart and passion for kids around the country. I want to begin by just expressing my grave concern for the very disturbing and troubling information that came out of your hearing yesterday on restraints and seclusion. And where you see children being hurt, children's safety has to be our #1 concern before we begin to think about educating them and doing other things. And so this is one where I'm going to ask state school chiefs from around the country to report to me what their plans are to make sure that student safety is taken care of. And as we go into the summer and prepare for next school year, I want to make sure as we go into next school year that every state has a real clear plan as to how to do this in a way that makes sense and doesn't jeopardize, doesn't endanger children. As you know, I come from Chicago. And in Illinois, and I think your testimony yesterday, Illinois has what I think is a very effective plan that prohibits the use of seclusion and restraint for punishment. It places time limits on this and requires monitoring and communication. It requires specific documentation of each incident. There's significant training. And because of all that, you've seen a dramatic reduction in the number of these incidents. There's also on our website information on positive behavioral interventions and supports, www.pbis.org, that I think is an invaluable resource. And so I'm going to be working with state school chiefs as we go into next school year to make sure that across the country we are thoughtful and we are not doing anything that endangers children or hurts or puts them in any kind of jeopardy. So we work very hard on that and appreciate.
Well, thank you for that. I know Mr. McKeon and I discussed this yesterday, and we would love to see the leadership come from the states. And if you could help coordinate that, that would really be helpful.
So
thank you.
We'll do whatever we can there. That's a very, very important issue. And again, I was deeply disturbed by some of the testimony coming out of yesterday's hearing. It's my pleasure to share with you President Obama's plan for American education. It is a comprehensive plan that meets the educational needs of our youngest citizens from cradle to career. If we are going to be successful in rebuilding our economy, our early childhood programs need to prepare our youngest children for kindergarten so they are ready to start reading and learning. Our K-12 schools need to make sure our students have all of the academic knowledge and skills they need to enter college or the workforce. And our higher education system needs to offer whatever advanced learning students need to be successful in a career, whether they will become a plumber, a teacher, or a business executive. As federal policymakers, we need to improve preparation for college and expand college access and completion by increasing financial aid so that students of all income levels can pay for college without taking on a mountain of debt. I'm proud to work for a president who has created a comprehensive agenda that addresses the needs at every level of our educational system, from expanding access to high-quality early childhood programs, to improving the rigor of the academic programs in our K-12 schools, to making college more affordable and accessible. We have tried to get off to a fast start here. Through the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act, we have laid the groundwork for reform on the K-12 level and made an early down payment on expanding access to early childhood education and increasing student aid for college students. The law made available almost $100 billion for education. I want to thank all of you for your generosity and support. That money will help prevent hundreds of thousands of layoffs, fill holes in state and local budgets, and provide financial aid to college students. The money is needed to help our economy in the short term, but very important reform efforts driven by these funds will be the key to our long-term economic success. Under the State Fiscal Stabilization Fund, states will receive $48.6 billion to supplement their own budgets during these difficult economic times. The Recovery Act says that states must spend most of that funding on education. $39.8 billion of that should go to schools. And I want to assure everyone here that I'll be scrutinizing how states spend their stabilization money to make sure they are focused on education. I've heard that some states are thinking about using their stabilization money to maintain the rainy day fund, and that others may rely on their stabilization grants to pay for tax cuts instead of investing in reforms. Let me be clear. I will do everything in my power to reject any schemes that would subvert the intended purpose of the Recovery Act, which is to help schools through the economic downturn and push reform, thereby ensuring our economic prosperity in the future. When reviewing applications for the Race to the Top fund, we plan to consider whether a state use their stabilization money to aggressively push reforms. In addition to helping states solve their budget problems, the stabilization fund lays out a path to reform. To receive their money, states must make 4 commitments that are absolutely essential to reforming our K-12 schools. First, they will improve the effectiveness of teachers and will work to make sure that the best teachers are in the schools that need them the most. Secondly, they promise to improve the quality of their academic standards so that they lead students down a path that prepares them for college and the workforce and global competitiveness. These standards need to be aligned with strong assessments. In addition, states must work to ensure that these assessments accurately measure the achievement of English language learners and students with disabilities. Third, states must commit to fixing their lowest performing schools. And finally, states must build data systems that can track student performance from one year to the next, from one school to another, so that those students and their parents will know when they are making progress and when they need extra attention. This information also must be put in the hands of educators so they can use it on a real-time basis to improve instruction. Right now, according to the Data Quality Campaign, DQC, Alabama, Arkansas, Delaware, Florida, Louisiana, and Utah are the only states that are reported to have comprehensive data systems meeting the basic elements of a good system. With $250 million in the stimulus and another $65 million in our annual budget for fiscal year 09 and again in fiscal year 010, we expect these numbers to continue to grow, which is absolutely vital to reform. In addition to the stabilization money, the Recovery Act, as you talked about, gave us $5 billion to spur innovation in states and in districts. Through the Race to the Top fund, we will be awarding $4.35 billion in competitive grants to states built around the 4 pillars of reform outlined in the Stabilization Fund. Through the What Works and Innovation Fund, we will also be awarding $650 million in competitive grants to districts and nonprofit organizations to scale up successful programs and evaluate promising practices. And I promise you, Mr. Chairman, we will have a very high bar. We want to invest in what works, take that to scale. The goal here is not to perpetuate the status quo. It's really to take education to an entirely different level, to both raise the bar and to close the achievement gap. Our fiscal year 2010 budget will expand our commitment to reforms in several important ways, addressing the needs from early childhood through K-12 education. Under the Title I program, we will provide $1.5 billion for the School Improvement Program. This money is vital for helping states and districts address problems in schools that are in the most trouble. We already have $3 billion for this program from the Recovery Act, and another $545 million from fiscal year 2009. By adding $1.5 billion in fiscal year 2010, we have more than $5 billion to address the problems of our lowest performing schools. I'd like to set a goal to turn around over time 1,000 low performing schools each year. I do not want to invest in the status quo. For children, families, and communities that have been poorly served for too long, we must act with a sense of urgency. We cannot wait because they cannot wait. When we think about only 2,000 schools in this country producing 50% of our nation's dropouts and 75% of our minority children dropouts, we have a real challenge there. We have a real opportunity with resources on the table and with courage and political will to challenge that, to work with those dropout factories, to work with their feeder middle schools and elementary schools, to fundamentally stop those dropout factories, those dropout pipelines, and do something dramatically better for those children and communities that I would argue in many places have been underserved, not for a couple years, but for decades. And everyone in this room knows that when children drop out today, they are basically condemned to poverty and to social failure. There are no good jobs out there for high school dropout, and we have to act now to make sure we do something better for those children, those communities. I want states and districts to take bold action that will lead directly to the improvement in student learning. I want local leaders to find those change agents who can fix these schools. I want them to provide incentives for the best teachers and the best principals to take on the challenge of teaching in these schools. And where appropriate, I want them to create partnerships with charter school operators with a track record for success. I want superintendents to be aggressive in taking the difficult step of shutting down a failing school and replacing it with one they know will work. We've proposed a $52 million increase in funding to develop and expand successful charter schools. Many of you have heard me say that I believe education is the civil rights issue of our time. I absolutely believe every child is entitled to a high-quality education, and I will work closely with the Office of Civil Rights to make sure that we properly review compliance in all programs and policy making. The fiscal year 2010 budget starts new programs and expands existing ones to address our priorities in early childhood education and literacy. We will create the $300 million Early Learning Challenge Fund that will award grants to help states set up the support and services necessary to build quality early childhood education. We will provide $500 million in grants through Title I to help districts use their Title I money to establish and expand preschool programs. We will expand the Striving Readers program from a small $35 million program focused on middle school and high schools to a $370 million program that addresses the reading needs of children in elementary schools as well. The program will take a comprehensive approach to reading instruction, ensuring that students develop the basic skills as well as the reading comprehension that is so vital to their success in high school and beyond. We will also continue our focus on promoting the teaching profession. Great teachers and great teaching matters tremendously. With $517 million in our fiscal year 2010 budget, we will continue and expand our support for local efforts under the Teacher Incentive Fund to develop comprehensive strategies for recruiting, preparing, rewarding, and retaining great teachers. We also request $10 million to start to plan new Promised Neighborhoods modeled on the highly successful Harlem Children's Zone. We are committed to acting on evidence, and we request $72 million more for the Institute for Education Sciences so we can identify what works based on rigorous research, invest more in what works, and stop spending money on ineffective programs. Our agenda from early childhood through 12th grade is focused on helping states do the right thing. And that's appropriate because states are responsible for establishing systems of education through the 12th grade. It is our role to make it a national priority to reform schools and to help states and districts do just that. For more than 40 years, the federal government has played a leading role in helping students pay for college. Continuing this vital role, the total amount of aid for students has increased by $32 billion since President Obama has taken office. By subsidizing loans and by providing work-study programs, and most importantly, giving Pell Grants to low-income students, the federal government is fulfilling the dreams of students who want to be able to go to college but might not have the resources to pay for it. President Obama has set an ambitious goal that by 2020, the United States once again will have the highest proportion of college graduates in the world. He fully understands that we have to educate our way to a better economy. That's an achievable goal, but to hit it, we have to make college affordable. The Recovery Act made an important down payment on our plans to expand student aid. The ERA Act provided $17.1 billion so we could raise the maximum Pell Award from $4,731 to $5,350. We also added $200 million to the work-study program, providing colleges and universities with additional money to provide jobs to students to help with their college and their living expenses. In our fiscal year 2010 budget, we want to make 3 important and permanent changes to ensure students have access to student aid and loans. The first thing it will do is to move the Pell Grant program from a discretionary program into a mandatory, appropriated entitlement. This approach will provide more certainty to students and families applying for student aid about the aid that's available to them. In addition, the Pell amounts will grow annually at a rate higher than inflation so that it keeps up with rising college costs. The second thing this budget does is address the problems with the Pell program. I think we all agree that the FFEL structure is broken and on life support now, and the federal student loan programs are in need of a dependable, cost-effective way of providing college-bound students and their families with the resources they need to meet the growing cost of post-secondary education. The direct lending program is the best way to do that. Through it, we will be able to leverage the government's lower cost of funds to finance and originate student loans and provide private sector expertise to service those loans. The President's proposal provides a comprehensive and reliable solution for today's students while saving taxpayers over $4 billion a year. It will be more stable and efficient, reducing risk for students and lowering costs for taxpayers. The third thing we are doing is boosting the Perkins Loan Program from $1 billion to $6 billion per year. The number of students served will rise from 500,000 to 2.7 million, and the number of schools that can participate in the program will increase from 1,800 to 4,400, which also means that we can serve more students. Also, to keep college affordable for our Perkins proposal allocates funds to schools based on their role in keeping tuitions down and providing grant aid to needy students. This further builds upon Congress's recent mandate to create watch lists of colleges with high or excessive increases in tuition. In closing, I'd like to remind you of one thing the President said when he addressed Congress in February. He said, in a global economy where the most valuable skill you can sell is your knowledge, a good education is no longer just a pathway to opportunity, it is a prerequisite. Thank you so much for your support so far in ensuring that our children and our young adults have the education they need to ensure they enter the workforce with the knowledge and skills they need to be successful and to help rebuild our economy. Thank you so much.